So, hello everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Hashtag, a panel on mental health and how we can use social media to help people's mental health and use it responsibly. So, in a world where you can be anything, be knowledgeable. We're specifically going to be looking at the hashtag Be Kind today, and I've got an amazing group of panelists. I myself am George. I'm the founder of How Mental. We are a movement for better mental health, bringing together people, organizations across the sector to help individuals access the support that they need. And I'm going to go to each of my panelists individually to introduce themselves. So we'll start with Tom. Tom, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. And hello, everyone. So yeah, I'm Tom. I work at Instagram in the London office, well, at home right now. And I'm here to talk about the kind of features we have so that people can stay safe online, but also tips around the way people might want to behave to kind of ensure that they're having a good time online and ensure that they are being kind and not kind of just using hashtags that say that.
Definitely. Thank you, Tom. Shall we go to Louisa next?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Louisa Rose. I'm the CEO of Beyond. I'm also a social media consultant, and I'm particularly interested in the relationship between social media and mental health. I really believe that social has got so many wonderful elements to it and aspects, and sometimes they might get misused. And so this is a great opportunity just to help everybody really understand how to nurture the good qualities of social media and kind of mitigate any negative impact.
Yes, so excited to dig into that some more. Next up, do you want to go with Gabriella?
Hi, I'm Gabriella. I'm 13 and I'm part of the youth board of Beyond, and I'm here today to also speak about mental health and how social media affects it.
Amazing. Excited for your opinion, Gabriella. And Vanessa, last but not least.
Hi everyone, I'm Inspiring Vanessa. I'm 14 years old. I'm a motivational speaker, a content creator, and a talk show host. And obviously I feel like mental health and just social media in general is such a broad subject. So it's going to be really exciting to dive into this and obviously reinforce the impact and importance of them both.
Definitely. Amazing. And I feel like, you know, especially with this youth perspective, I'm really excited for native social media users to give us the real tea, the real gossip. So, so firstly, I guess, let's start by thinking about, you know, we're all aware that social media has, you know, positives, negatives. Do we find social media to be a kind of, well, firstly, how do we see it? Do we see it as a positive thing or do we see it as a negative thing? Let's just start there. And anyone can pick this up from the panel. I'd love to just get a quick perspective from each person.
I don't mind starting.
Yeah.
I think that social media is more positive than it is negative. I think the thing that we're missing, especially kind of in the UK and in the way that we address education, full stop, is just, yeah, it's that kind of knowledge piece, right? Like I always say to people, you wouldn't give the keys of your car to someone who doesn't know how to drive. And so why would you give access to a social media platform to somebody who hasn't actually been taught yet how it's maybe designed, or you know what the sort of features are, how to stay safe on it. You know, we know the highway code, but we don't necessarily teach our children how to be safe on the internet, full stop, actually. But yeah, we're talking about social media right now. So I think that the positives of it outweigh the negatives, but only when we actually do truly kind of embrace that education piece around it.
Nice. Louisa's giving us a positive with some brackets. Okay, who's up next? Who else would like to share their opinion?
I don't mind going. To be honest, I feel like social media, like everything else, has pros and cons. So I feel like that social media, obviously, it can be quite a controversial subject because everybody has their different perspectives on it, but it really does depend on the way you use it. And as Weasel was just saying, it depends on how you know, on how to use it. Like, what do you know, and what resources do you know, what knowledge do you have to use social media positively and in a good way to impact other people. So I feel like it really does depend on the person, what their intentions are when they download a social media app or they try and create a platform for themselves. It really depends on the intention behind that individual.
I love that, and I'm totally going to dig into that a little bit more in a second. Gabriella, what do you think about social media?
I totally agree with Vanessa and Louisa. As social media can kind of hide how you're feeling on the inside, as it like distorts reality. It shows how things may, you know, look okay on the outside. On the inside, you could be doing really bad, but on social media, it kind of seems like everything's positive and stuff like that. So it can be used in a really negative way or a really positive way.
Yeah, love that. And Tom, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with a lot of the comments. You know, I would obviously agree with Louisa that I think that the good of it kind of outweighs the bad. But it's absolutely true that it totally depends on your own experience. And, you know, if there are a couple of things that it would be really great to discuss as part of this panel, it's so important to be really mindful of your own time and how you feel when you're using social media. And sometimes things that might feel good in the short term aren't necessarily good in the long term. And also to be really mindful of the way you act and how that might impact others. Because it is, you know, it's called social media. It's fundamentally about your connection to other people. And I think that it's really important to just be mindful of those things because it can have a real impact in ways you may not be aware of. But yeah, overall, I would agree that I think that it's overall very, very positive, but it really depends on the person and the experience. And there are lots and lots of different ways of using it and tools out there that can help as well. That hopefully we can talk about some of that on the panel.
Yeah, definitely. So picking up a little bit on what Gabriella mentioned about the sort of positive and negative aspects to it, and also what Vanessa said about being able to use social media for good. What does being able to use social media for good look like? How do each of you use social media to create a positive impact? Do you want to start with Vanessa, actually, seeing as you started there?
I really think that what makes, like, I guess you could say what makes a good influencer or a good content creator, well, one, in my opinion, is talk about things that you believe in, that you find important, to use your platform to raise awareness of things. Because in my opinion, I just feel like if you have a platform, you kind of have a responsibility that does come with that, to teach people things or to make people aware of things. I think authenticity is extremely important because obviously I think we're all guilty of it. When you want to post a photo of your food, or you want to post a photo, obviously, if you look nice and you want to post that, even if maybe you've had a really bad day the day before, you're always going to be, even unintentionally and subconsciously, wanting to post the best things about your life, the highlights of your life on your Instagram account. So when people, or your social media account, so when people look at that, they only see the goods, which obviously isn't accurate because us as humans go through both experiences or a numerous amount of experiences. So I feel like being authentic with people and just reminding them that although you may watch me or although you may like my posts or follow my content, I am as real and as human as you are. I watch people as well, like maybe you watch me. So I think it's really important to remind people that there is not really like that boundary there, because you are literally this, like, you're just the same. There's just one person maybe has a bigger platform or a bigger platform to have a voice. I think that's the main difference between the two of them. So I feel like having or using social media for good is just trying to remind people that what you're kind of comparing yourself to online, or what's perhaps maybe making you think of social media negatively, isn't all real and isn't all true. So I think that constant reminder and realness and authenticity and truth is really what goes a long way.
Yeah, I love a lot of those words. A lot of those are my favorite words. And I think I would probably add some vulnerability in there just so that people are, you know, able to open themselves up to be authentic and everything else. Gabriella, where do you think the kind of lack of authenticity comes from?
I think it really depends on like the person,
Mm,
as we said before. Like most people would probably wouldn't even care about using social media in a good way. It just matters if they look good and so other people can like their photo and stuff like that. And it's like you find very few people using social media in a really inspiring way.
yeah,
And I think that obviously needs to change because just posting a picture of yourself looking good, like don't get me wrong, it's fun, it's nice, but also on the other like side, using it to inspire other people and kind of show positivity. Yeah.
yeah. I love that. And how do you show positivity?
Um, well, as you can say, we're probably all guilty of using it in a negative way. But for now, I probably use it to just text my friends, check up on them, see if they're doing okay. I'd also, maybe that occasional post on my story about mental health and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's community. Um, Louisa, how about you? How do you use social media to impact people positively?
I think it's such an interesting question because, change makers can be born on social media. Change makers, for the first time ever, we have the potential to become whoever we want to be and have access to whoever we want to access through this type of platform. What it means is that people like the Greta Thunbergs of the world have a platform to share their voice. It's amazing. So when I bring that to sort of myself and the way I use it, I probably share other authentic people, other authentic users on the platform. But I think one of the most important things for me, especially in this through this panel, is how can we kind of how can we be responsible social media users? So I sort of see that as one of the kind of responsibilities under the umbrella of like using it positively, because I think that in being a responsible social media user, you are actually putting out positivity out there, right? So for me, that's about calling out unhelpful comments and trolling comments and sort of inappropriate comments. It's about reporting the things that don't make you feel good if you feel that they breach guidelines. It's about unfollowing all of those things so that your social media place and presence and home can become a positive influence on your life and that you can put out positive content onto others. So I kind of feel like it's all sort of wrapped up in this idea of positivity, and it's not just about like putting out sort of positive messages of motivation. It's actually about how we use the platform as well.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I think that I completely agree that sort of responsibility itself is a kind of positivity. Tom, how do you use social media positively? I'm interested both, I guess, from a personal level and also from Instagram. Like, how do you see social media being used positively?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not sure I could say it much better than Louisa did, actually. There's a lot of that I'd really agree with. That, to me, talking as Instagram, I would say that Instagram is fundamentally about bringing people closer to the people or the things that they love. That's what it's about. But then when we think about how that can be done in a sort of more positive way, there's sort of three big areas that we work on. The first is expression. So we want people to express themselves authentically, which was, I think, a word that Vanessa used, and that is a really big thing that we try and encourage from people. And we encourage them to do that easily and creatively, whether that is photos or videos or stickers or whatever it might be. And we want everyone in the community to be able to do that. Then the second big area is about connecting people to interests. because really we want to be able to connect people to the things that they love and really genuine interests and things that become important to them and their lives and that they will engage with and that they will talk to people about. You know, some of the evidence in this space shows that engaging in content and talking to other people is better for you than sort of passively scrolling all the time. And so we really want people to be connected to their interests. And then the final area is around well-being more broadly, which is a big topic in and of itself. But that's things like, what can we do as Instagram to kind of minimize harm and ensure that people have the tools and controls and product experience to you know, have a more positive time online. So that might be the work we do to remove harmful content, and things like reporting is really important for that. You know, you can report any piece of content, you can do it anonymously, but it's giving people tools as well. And I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but whether that is muting or blocking, or the restrict function, which we actually built working with teenagers and young people. That's a really good one, because you can limit someone's ability to kind of troll or bully without them even knowing, because they're not aware that they've been restricted. That's all really, really important. But then the final area is a bit actually harder to grasp. It's how do we just generally encourage people to behave positively and to think mindfully about what they post? And that is often, you know, we'll work with creators and members of the community that are campaigning on really interesting issues. We'll do panels like this where we'll talk to really inspiring people about how they use the platform. And yeah, that all of that kind of sits under well-being. You did also ask about me and mine.
Yes.
I mean, it is so different for everyone. Personally, I have a private account. I would recommend that for a lot of people, particularly young people, because it gives you so much control over who you interact with, but it still means that you can follow whoever you want. So I would really recommend that. I would agree that it's about being really mindful of who you follow and what kind of things you choose to have in your life, because sometimes you can follow people who might be really cool and really creative, and that can actually make you feel bad if there's too much of one thing, and it can make you feel inadequate. And I would really encourage people not to do that. I mean, my feed is often things like indie music and hiking that I don't think anyone here would find interesting apart from me. But that's what's good about social media, is that you can tailor it to your own experience and get involved in that. And then I will come across people who are really inspiring in those areas and you know, encourage the next generation of talent to get involved. And that's just so great to be part of and to kind of follow and share with my friends.
Yeah. Amazing. There's so much to pick up on there. I guess like one thing that I'd like to kind of start with, just because I obviously run my own Instagram account where I have over 600,000 followers there who are following How Mental, and I can only imagine how difficult it is to kind of police the sort of the space, and you know, when it comes to content that might be harmful or people that might be harmful, it must be really tough to actually know what is the right thing to do, when to restrict, when to report, when to do all of these things. How do you decide when to do that? Because like Gabriella mentioned, everyone is kind of going through their own thing. And so one person's view of a particular post might be one way, another person's view of a particular post might sort of be a completely different perspective. So how do you go about actually looking at what is content or people potentially who are really harming the platform?
Want me to say that first?
Yes, Tom, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is challenging. I'll be upfront about that. You know, we have policies around what is and is not allowed on Instagram. Those are evolving all the time, and we work with experts, we work with NGOs to try and make sure they're in the right place. We work with governments to ensure that they're all in the right place, but they are constantly evolving, often because the academic evidence changes and we learn more about people's behavior and what is and is not acceptable. Increasingly, we use a real mixture of, there's a team of 35,000 people at Facebook and Instagram working on these issues, but also lots and lots of technology as well. So we were in a world just a year ago where about 1 in 3 pieces of bullying and harassment that we saw on Instagram, our technology found it before it was reported. That's now up to 80% a year later. So that's a big jump. But there's 20% of a lot of content. So that still leaves a lot on there that we rely on user reports to find. So we do encourage people to report. Many people don't know, but that actually helps to train the technology in the future as well, so that we then get better and better at it. But I guess the final thing I'd say is one of the reasons why we put a lot of energy into controls and tools, and why we're constantly changing those, is because you're absolutely right that what is harmful for one person might not be for someone else. And we always want to be ensuring that people have the ability to control their own experience. So things like the comment filter can be really important there, because there might be words that in your school are really bullying and harmful, but we've not seen before, and we don't know that's true. So you can use the comment filter on your own account. And in fact, we are launching that on DM requests as well soon. So that will start appearing on accounts soon. And those kind of tools really, really help people. I'm aware that not everyone knows about them, so I do always encourage people to kind of go digging around in your settings. And that's why we're doing panels like this as well. But it is always going to be a combination of the two, I think, where we will always be, updating our policies, improving the way we enforce them, but really encouraging people to use tools as well.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a big mission here. So there's a lot of different things to do, and I really like the idea that people can actually help be a part of this. I'm interested to know, Gabriella, Vanessa, and Louisa, what tools do you know about that you use to kind of help you create your own safe experience on social media? Do you use any?
I'm also very conscious of my work as a youth mental health charity CEO that young people aren't necessarily proactively trying to hide those hashtags. And so there's a bit of a kind of conflict there. And so I think that I'm pleased to hear about the sort of collaborative effort that Instagram, Facebook go to actually seek out those hashtags. But I'm interested in how we can make the fact that you can actually restrict hashtags a little bit more visible or a bit more obvious, because I think one of the reasons why young people maybe aren't is because they actually just don't know about it. So I get that there's a lot of awareness, but I'd love to hear from Vanessa and Gabriella. Did they know that you can restrict hashtags, and if so, do you use that tool?
Yeah, Vanessa, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think my main piece of advice in just terms of using tools in general is to just be resourceful. So basically, as Tom was saying, go through your settings. If there's any trolls on your comment section, or even somebody who who's just not spreading positivity or not just being kind, then restrict that person, or just remove them off your profile, like literally just block them off, just completely remove them, because one, that's just gonna be messing up the reason why you're posting. If you're feeling good about yourself and then somebody puts a comment there and it just completely obliterates your self-esteem for that day, then obviously that's gonna have to go. I think I've restricted some people in the past, because obviously me being 14 years old, I think some people don't realize that my mum partly runs my account as well. So obviously there are certain situations where it's just like, okay, let's restrict that person just for safety reasons, obviously. But I don't think I've gotten to the point where I have to like block out certain words, like in comment sections in terms of hate and things like that. But in terms of it's actually YouTube as well, I think when you get like a weird comment, they put it into spam, so it doesn't directly come up. You can always go through it, or you can just delete them all without having to look for any comments. So different things like that I think are really helpful to obviously keep your mental health in check, and to continue to stay safe, and obviously make that positive environment that you should be on social media for.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're very adept at using the settings and tools yourself. Did you always know that the tools were there, and where did you kind of find out about that?
When I first had my Instagram account, because I began my social media platforms when I was 9 years old. So I've been doing it for about 5 years. So yeah, so you could imagine like every time in primary school when teachers would talk about, oh yeah, you guys aren't supposed to have social media yet, and this is just WhatsApp, and everyone just turns around and stares at me knowing that I have a YouTube channel and etc. But I'm like, guys, my mum monitors it, don't worry, it's not just me doing it by myself secretly. But I had a private account at first, and then we kind of felt like to reach more people, it would be best to obviously open it to public, which is why obviously my account is public now. I think I found about the restricting thing, or like restricting certain words, not too long, maybe a while ago, maybe 2 years ago, I'd say. But it wasn't, I didn't know about it that like immediately when I went to social media. I think it's something you kind of learn over time.
Do you learn it, I guess, in response to a situation that happens, and then you're like, oh, okay, cool, I need to do something about this? Is that kind of?
Yeah, I think so. It's like, what do I do? And then you kind of say, oh, well, there's a solution, which I think a lot of people find it hard to do. So there's always going to be a positive outcome or solution you can find in a situation like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy that you were on social media at the age of 9. I mean, I remember, well, I mean, I was kind of first generation, so I was on it at 15, but I feel like 9 is extremely young. Did you make your own account, or did your mom make your account, or how did it work?
So yeah, my mum made my account.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't think Instagram would let you if I put in my actual date of birth. So obviously, it was my mum's year of birth, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, then it was just put on private. I had my YouTube channel at the time as well, which, to be honest, my mum was a bit skeptical about because it's the World Wide Web. Most parents can be obviously quite scared about that or anxious about that, but I'm glad that she's been supportive throughout my journey. But yeah, I feel like it's always just been monitored extremely by my mum. She reminds me, do not look in your requests because you don't know what could be there. So I'm like, okay, that's a no-go zone. And then she just goes through that, or goes through comments if there's anything there, especially on YouTube as well. I think YouTube is a bit more interactive in terms of different types of comments, I'd say. But yeah, I think it's always just been both of us kind of co-monitoring the social media accounts so that I'm still staying safe and we're still having that adult point of view.
Amazing. Well, I mean, it's good that you've got your mum there for sure. Gabriella, when did you first start using social media?
Oh, God. I think I actually first started using it when I was about 9 or 10, but it wasn't actually my decision to do it. My sister actually persuaded me to get an account on Instagram, and I think I still have that account, but I haven't used it in years. I rarely used it. I only really started going on social media a lot when I was about 11, 12, which is probably still quite early. But I did actually end up lying about my age on multiple platforms. And I know it's like quite a bad thing, but obviously this panel is kind of about how easy it can be to just lie about it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm aware, I think that the age limit is 13. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, Louisa, I think it's 13.
Yeah, I was gonna confirm it is 13. So you shouldn't be on Instagram if you're under the age of 13.
Right.
I think we are we do say that clearly people do try and get around this and try and find ways of creating accounts otherwise, prevent that from happening. Some of them at sign up, and I'm actually not going into the detail of how that works because then people will try and get around it. But in addition to that, if anyone sees an account for someone they think is under 13, they can report that even if they don't have an Instagram account themselves. But as I say, I say this knowing, because we've just heard from 2 people on the panel, that people do find ways to try and get around that. but it's definitely a space where we're kind of constantly working on it, because we do want people to be 13 or over before they create accounts on Instagram.
Yeah. Louisa.
Sorry, I'm so interested in that particular area of like safety on social, and I'm just really curious, is there a way that Instagram, Tom, this is just mainly for you obviously, but is there a way that Instagram actually is able to verify whether or not somebody's age is correct? Is there like a kind of, you know, two-sided verification that's needed, or is it just literally, you know, you basically could put in any age?
So if we suspect someone is under 13, we will ask them to verify their age, and then we have processes for doing that. So yes, we do have something in place if we suspect that someone is under 13. Plus, we will, even if they're kind of reported for something else, we will still have checks on our side to try and understand if someone is over that age. But again, I'll be honest that this is a very industry-wide problem around how you address it, and we're constantly trying to figure out ways that we can improve our systems. And some of that, again, is actually around technology and around more and more that we can do to understand, based on information that we've got, whether or not someone might be of that age. But yeah, as I say, it's definitely an ongoing one.
Yeah. I mean, if it was up to my mom, I know that she'd definitely put herself as like 25. So, you know, I know that a lot of us want to lie about our age for different reasons, but in this case, it is, you know, it's really hard to imagine that, well, even a 13-year-old, but especially not like a 9-year-old would know how to navigate a platform like Instagram or like anything else. So, so it's good that it's kind of an area that you're looking at. Gabriella, I wanted to ask you as well, do you know much about like the different tools that you can use on Instagram to help you, you know, have a kind of safer experience, and how do you make sure that you're using Instagram in a way, or any social media platform in a way that actually helps you to feel good and feel mentally healthy?
I actually don't know about many tools. The only main one that I really know is just reporting it, which is probably not too great. I haven't really learnt about it, as I don't think schools and other people really think about it's like a thing to cover.
Mm.
And in using how I use like social media in like a positive way, I think I said this before, but I'll literally just do the occasional post about mental health or something like that, or maybe like a personal issue that I've been through, which I think others could relate to as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And so I guess like another area for me that, you know, I find helps me is kind of curating my feed. And I think someone else mentioned that, like, you know, making a feed that is actually very positive. And I feel like, Louisa, do you do the same thing, or is
Yeah,
this?
I do, and it's one of the sort of the biggest points of my workshops that I do in schools is around how you curate your feed, because like Gabriella says, you know, we're not teaching young people these tools. We're not teaching them how to do these things using these digital platforms. And so I think the first thing that I often talk about is really just actually how the platforms are designed. So, you know, I mean, Tom can kind of confirm or deny whether or not I'm right in what I'm saying, but the platforms themselves, the technology is designed using psychology, right? So it's using sort of the knowledge and expertise of how our brains work, and how, you know, how we actually reinforce connections, and, you know, when we like something, that we might want to see that more of that, because it's sort of in liking, in receiving likes and receiving positive responses, that releases a certain chemical in our brains, and therefore we want more of it. And so platforms are actually designed with all of that in mind, which is kind of terrifying on one hand, but actually, as soon as you understand that, it makes your behaviors on it it makes, or it sort of helps you understand how to behave on it and how to kind of take control of it a little bit more. And so then I sort of would draw attention to this idea of curating your feeds, because the more that you like certain types of content, the more the platform thinks that you like it, like what, you know, Tom was saying before, because the platform is there to serve you content that you want to see. So the more that you like particular content, the more it thinks that you want to see that, and the more it will serve it to you. If you're liking content for the sake of liking content and not because you're meaningfully interested in that piece of content, then try and kind of take a mindful step back from that and actually really just pay attention to the pieces of content that you are actually engaging with, because you are feeding the platforms information, you know, based on your behaviors. And so in curating your feed, it really all comes down to, are you feeding the platform the correct information? You know, are you telling the platform about the accounts that you genuinely are interested in, rather than sort of feel a certain pressure to like or to comment on? You know, is it are the users that you are, you know, whose content you're actually engaging with, are they genuinely providing value to your life? And if they are, then amazing and brilliant. But if they're not, and you are just engaging with it because you think that as a 13-year-old in this any particular school, in any particular social group, you feel like you should be, then take a mindful step back, because actually in engaging with that account, you are actually giving the platform the idea that you do want to be. So you will just continue to be served content around that. So when I talk about curating your feeds, it's really just about taking back control of the content that you're seeing and making sure that it is actually a positive space for you. You know, it is your personal social media home. So make sure that it's filled with pieces of content that make you feel good about yourself, or inspired or empowered.
Definitely. Can we do like a quick fire and just see like around the panel? And actually, Vanessa, do you want to say something first?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add to the whole like idea of schools and like how they introduce e-safety, because I'm pretty sure they mainly, or like in ICT lessons, they have like a few lessons obviously on e-safety, like don't talk to strangers online, don't have your password with certain or personal information in it. And that's kind of like, I feel like the basics of e-safety, but they don't really explain to you like mental safety.
Mm-hmm.
As in, like, as we were saying before, like the tools for you to use to protect your mental health and protect almost like also the people around you as well. So I feel like that's something that schools really lack, because despite still telling us e-safety tips and information, it doesn't go into that depth of why are we doing this and what are the long-term impacts of that.
Yeah, completely. And I think like on that note, you just gave me an idea. What do you think about if you were to come on a social media platform and then that platform actually just told you, you know, here are the ways that you can protect yourself on this platform? What do you think about that? Would you like them to kind of show you something like that if it came at the beginning, or would that just be like a little bit scary?
I feel like at first people would be like, oh, this is like a little bit weird. Like, why is it? It's almost like when you open up an app or a game and it tells you what buttons to click on and what they do, kind of thing. I think Instagram does that as well, I'm pretty sure. But I feel like it would be quite helpful. I think people would perhaps take advantage of it at first, or like take it for granted, at first. And then they start to kind of realize this is actually quite helpful, because as we were saying, your feed is all you're constantly scrolling through. When you scroll, that's going into your brain, that's going into your mind, that's basically setting the tone for the rest of your day or the beginning of your day when you turn on your phone. So what is there that's going to get you up in the morning, kind of thing? So I do feel like that if that reminder was there, like if you want to have a good feed, then follow somebody who posts quotes, or follow somebody who posts mental health tips, or listen to a podcast in the morning that is giving you positive energy and information, different things like that. So you're feeding yourself goodness instead of kind of I guess you could say starving yourself from your self-love, if that makes sense.
I love that. I can definitely see a very like interwoven well-being completely interwoven with the experience. That I don't know, how do you feel about that, Gabriella?
I feel like like if you actually, when you first open an app, how to work it and what to do. I definitely feel like that would help. But as Vanessa said at first, people would definitely take it for granted, or maybe some people would just think, oh, this is just dumb. Why would I listen to it? It's like the terms and conditions of things. You don't read it all, you just scroll down to the bottom and press agree. It's like that. I think people would just do that. But then over time, they would, start to second think that and, maybe take a look at it. So I think it would help.
Cool. So I wanted to do a kind of quick fire questions just on how we use social media. So is everyone ready for that? Cool.
Yeah, George, do you mind if I just mention a couple of things off the back of that last discussion? Because it's really, really interesting, and it goes to a lot of the things that we think about as a company. So actually quite recently we started now, when you create an account, if you're under 18, started actively asking people whether they want a public or private account. And we say now we recommend you have a kind of a private account because it gives you more control if you're younger. And then what we do is in the app, about a week or two later, if someone's chosen public, we'll kind of remind them of the benefits that they may get from a private one. But what's really interesting about that is we're kind of doing more and more of these things, and we're constantly thinking about it. But I also really agree with what people said around the way we need to address this sort of off the app as well, because this is, it's huge societal issues. We're spending our lives more and more online, and I think it's so important that we think about, whether it's in schools or working with people on the ground. I do think that's really important as well. And Facebook and Instagram, we do lots of partnerships with organizations to do that. But ultimately, and again, this comes back to another point that someone mentioned, so much of it then becomes about your own life and your own experience. So it's quite hard sometimes to give tips that are useful for everyone. So we sometimes have to give controls that they can use that will help them specifically. So it's going to be an ongoing thing that we always have to work on, basically. But at the same time, I thought it was really interesting what people were saying around what we can kind of do in app and in those spaces, because it's a really interesting area as well. Sorry, I interrupted you before your last question.
No, I love it. And I think that's something that everyone wants to hear. They want to hear that Instagram and social platforms do care about these things as well, because it's so easy to feel like you are just one of a couple billion users, which at the end of the day you are, but you're also a human being, and you also have value, and you also have worth. And so it's a great thing to, we want to hear that, Tom. So so I guess I'd like to learn a little bit more about how you guys are using social media and what you think is a healthy usage of social media. So just a few quick fire questions. Firstly, let's do a yes or no. Who here curates their feed to be, healthy? Do you want to just do a show of hands? Okay, cool. Most people. Gabriella, you don't. Did you ever even consider that as something that you could do?
Yeah, I did, but it wasn't something I was really mainly interested in. But I like seeing other people do it, but I wouldn't do it myself.
Yeah, fair enough. So next one, and if we can go one at a time, how long do each of you spend on social media on a daily basis? So Vanessa, do you want to go first?
I can check my screen time right now, but I'm telling you, I'm not going to be proud of it. Yeah, I'm not going to be happy with it. I mean, to be honest, when I wake up in the morning, I don't go straight and stare at my phone and scrolling. What I do is I just listen to music, because I wake up at 6 o'clock. So just listen to music until I get on my train. My daily average recently has been 4 hours and 46 minutes, which is quite good considering I'm being at school. But I'd say over the half term, it would probably maybe be around 8 hours a day.
Whoa. Sorry, that is crazy. Oh my God. Vanessa, I mean, you're making me feel slightly better about myself, but at the same time, it's not making me feel good. So,
No.
this is not okay. Louisa, do you want to go?
Can I ask Vanessa if that went up or down or stayed the same during the pandemic?
Oh, definitely up.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely up, because I feel like we all turned to online things over quarantine. Because I honestly don't know what we do as a world, as a society, without our phones or having Netflix or any of these like digital platforms. I don't know what we'd be doing without having those resources, being locked at home.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense as well. Well, when you're not going anywhere else and, not seeing physical people, it makes a lot of sense that it's going to go up. Gabriella, how long do you spend on social media?
Well, at the moment, my screen time is between 2 and 3 hours, which is actually really good for me. But I think the past couple months, it went from about 11, maybe to 15, all the way down to 2 to 3. And that's just mainly because of school and also because I just felt like it was affecting me in a negative way. So I cut back from it completely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's amazing that you chose to do that. Did you ask someone else, or did you speak to other people before you did that, or were you just like, I'm just gonna cut for a little bit?
Well, I did kind of speak to my friends about it, but they were telling me not to in case, my replies just went really bad. So, but I didn't listen to them. Instead, I actually asked my parents, and they said, yeah, I should cut back.
Yeah. It's good to get different opinions on this. Louisa, how long do you spend on social media each day? I'm curious to know this.
I know you're curious about this one. So it's not as much as I used to be, actually. For me, I'm looking at my screen time. I mean, my screen time is shocking. My screen time is about 7.5 hours per day on my phone. But I do think that I do most of my work on my phone, actually, especially with little children around. So I'm kind of like often on the move. But actually, my daily average for Instagram is about 2 hours. I don't know if that's good or bad or middle or what.
Well, I mean, we're gonna find out. Like, we've got Tom next. So, Tom, how long are you spending on Instagram?
Well, firstly, there isn't really a kind of good or bad amount. I think most of the evidence on this shows that what's really important is the way you're using it, because lots of people use social media for work. They might be social media consultants or whatever it might be. So that's the main thing. Having said that, we also don't want everyone to spend all of their time on Instagram. People have lives, and at the end of the day, they often are posting about and discussing things that they're doing offline. It's just that the way that they communicate about that or learn about that may be on Instagram as well. I would say in terms of time, well, firstly, this is a good plug for the fact that on Instagram you can obviously check your own screen time, and you get that sort of bar chart, which I do recommend people look at, because it's good to be aware of these things and to sort of know the figures. And also you can set notifications that will you can set your own kind of screen time limit, and then you can snooze that if you want, but at least you then know that you've reached that limit that you had for yourself. In terms of my own use, it's probably about, I'd say, about an hour to 2 a day, but actually it does depend on work, but not in the way you'd think, in that sometimes I need to be doing it for work depending on what I'm working on and what's going on. One of the rare people for whom being on Instagram is work. But yeah, I'd say, it really depends on the person, and the main thing I'd say is do go to the your activity section and have a look at your own time and figure out what you think might be healthy. And also, one thing I would say is taking a break can be really, really good. I will do that if I go on holiday, or if I feel like I've been just doing it too much, and I would really encourage people to think about doing that as well.
No, so I'm actually with Tom on a couple of aspects. Like, firstly, Instagram is the majority of my time in my business, so I do have to spend a lot of time on that. But secondly, I also spend about an hour on the platform, and I think like Tom's saying as well, like it's going to be different for each of us. It's going to vary, you know, depending on what we do for our occupation, depending on, you know, whether it's a day in the middle of the week versus the weekend versus during a pandemic versus not during a pandemic. So, you know, all of these things do vary, and at the end of the day, like we need to be aware of ourselves and be able to make sure that we know when we need to take care of ourselves and in what way to do that. And I think that's the incredible thing, is that Instagram is actually, you know, creating ways for people to be able to do that within the app and as part of the experience. So I just want to go around quickly. We've got only a couple of minutes left. Does anyone have any final thoughts? Can each of you share some final thoughts on social media, mental health, and I guess, like, you know, something that you'd want to let someone know, yeah, that comes from your own experience. So Vanessa, do you want to start? Sorry, I'm always looking to you first because you're always on that side of my screen.
No worries. No worries. I think my words of advice would probably have to be, well, one, obviously take a social media detox. If maybe you don't even realize at first that it's affecting you negatively, but maybe you just start to realize, oh, well, why didn't I look like this person when I just watched their video yesterday? Or why can't I be like this or be like that? Or why can't I get more likes or followers? Or why are these people commenting on my friend's post but not mine? Different things like that. Maybe you start to think about subconsciously and you naturally realize that it's because social media isn't having the best impact on you at that time. So I'd say take a social media detox, one. Two, obviously, as we said, change around your feed. Make sure you're following people who actually enjoy following, because obviously it doesn't matter whether you want to scroll or not. We have to admit that social media is very addictive. So when you are going to be on your phone scrolling, at least make sure that it's positive and that it's feeding you positivity. And my last thing would probably have to be is that if you do ever receive hate, I know this can be perceived in a lot of different ways, but if you do ever receive hate or receive a mean message, or you see somebody spreading negativity on somebody else's post, the way that I have to, or the way that I would like to view it as, is that maybe that person is asking for attention, and that's the only way they can find someone, or they can actually be noticed, because maybe they're not getting that in their own personal lives. So they turn to somebody, whether that be with a positive comment or a negative comment. They're just trying to find a way to get noticed. So I think always think about what people are going through behind closed doors. And that just means continuously be supportive. And that's why we're saying be kind, or hashtag be kind isn't just a hashtag. It's something you actually have to do, and it's something in action, and it's something that we should all constantly be reminded of, because that's not only online, that's face to face as well, because you never know how far that can go, how far that smile at someone can go, or how far that nice comment can go on somebody's post. You never know. So I just say do it, so that makes you feel good and also encourages the other person to do good.
My God, you are a star, Vanessa.
Thank you.
I was also, I think you mentioned something which I wanted to pick up on earlier as well, which is, you know, when people are, you know, throwing out negative comments, I don't think that necessarily means that they deserve to be, like, you know, brandished an awful human being. And even though, you know, we might restrict people and we might report people, I feel like there's a lot more there in terms of the way that we interact with each other, where we know that everyone's going through their own thing, you know. And so thank you so much for shining a light on that. Gabriella, what would be your words of wisdom for anyone using social media?
Definitely be careful when you're on social media, because you literally never know what can happen or what is going to be posted on there. So I think the best piece of advice that I can give is think before you go on social media, before you get it, think about like the negative side of it and if you're prepared for all of that. Yeah.
So important. Thank you so much. Louisa?
Vanessa, Gabriella basically just covered it all. I mean, honestly, like, you guys should just run my sessions. The only thing I would add is that the relationship that we have with our mobile phones can become habitual. I mean, what I mean by that is just that, you know, we can often just pick up our phone to tell the time, and it's such an automatic, instinctive response that the second that we see the time, we might see notifications, and then the moment we see notifications, we're kind of in an app, and then, you know, half an hour later, we're kind of 64 weeks deep into somebody's Instagram feed, for example. So one of my biggest tips is to wear a watch. Not a lot of people wear a watch. I actually wear a watch. I wear an analog watch because I'm like, I just need to see something that's not digital. But it just stops my sort of that habitual reflex of going to my phone to tell the time, which is often a kind of gateway into mindlessly scrolling. So that's one of my tips, is wear a watch. Love
it. Bringing back the retro feel, yes. Even though it's not that retro, like, who am I pretending like that's that retro? Tom, what would be your words of advice for using social media?
One of the good things about working at Instagram is when you do panels like this, and people who use the platform say a lot of the things that we say, which is quite reassuring. I think, you know, I was Vanessa's comment around, you know, really think about the people who are behind these accounts when you're communicating with them, I think is really important. And we try and do that a lot in, you know, we have a feature which it's sort of, if we think you're posting a bullying or harassing comment, it pops up and says, you sure you want to post this? And similarly, if you break one of our rules, we will send you something explaining that fact and giving you a chance to change your behavior, because we're dealing with people here behind these accounts, and it's really important to sort of always remember that in the way that you act and in the way that you think about people, even if they're really, really famous. And yeah, I thought that was just a really important point that I thought I'd mention. In terms of tips, there's kind of too many for me to say here, but what I would say is, on the main @Instagram account, we've got a new guide out in the guide section that has loads of tips around how to manage the pressure that many of us feel to be perfect online, and that's really good. There's one as well on our creators account around a lot of these tools that we've been talking about. So we mentioned a few of them here, but I'd really encourage people to go and look at that on our main Instagram account and on the creators account as well.
Definitely. Amazing. Vanessa.
Sorry, and just one last thing to add that kind of reminded me of what Louisa was saying, is I think I saw somebody do this on like a YouTube video, I think, but if you are still unable to be just off your phone completely, so obviously that automatic process of going onto your apps, so where your social media apps are, put productive apps in the same place. So for example, if I'm going to be going straight into Instagram, instead of clicking on the Instagram app, I automatically click on a notes app or a to-do list app or a podcast or a quotes app, if that makes sense. So you're kind of changing your routine around despite still having that automatic process to be changed around. So that's another helpful thing that people can do to be more productive when they're using their phones, despite obviously still being quite attached to it as well.
Definitely. No, I think that you're totally right to mention it. This fits into a broader conversation around how we use technology and how we become mindful of using technology. And so on that note, I think it's really important to mention that obviously we've been talking about a lot of topics involving mental health, involving your well-being. We're asking people to express themselves authentically online. If you're going through something, whatever that might be, and that is, and it goes beyond something that you want to just share on a post or story, but something where you actually need support, please do text BEYOND to 85258 for 24/7 support. There are people out there who want to help you, who are literally sitting there waiting and ready to help you. So yeah, just have to mention that. Thank you so much to everyone on this panel, all of these beautiful faces, beautiful minds. Honestly, I feel like this is the beginning of a big shift in terms of how we look at mental health in this modern age. And I would be so excited for all of us to, you know, keep connecting, keep sharing what we're experiencing, and to keep evolving. And I hope you guys are ready for that too. Who's ready for that? Should we have some hands? Yes. Cool. Nice. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.